All right, welcome back, ladies and gents, to the weekly walk and talk. We are on the Isle of Man today, as usual. I just got to throw in there, a lot of people ask what happened to my walk and talk last Friday and my Thursday video. I was absolutely dying in bed. You probably noticed from Wednesday's video, my voice was gone. I don't know who, someone gave me the flu last week and I'm still struggling. That's 2 weeks now. So that's what happened to last week's video. But today we want to get into the nitty gritty. Oh, it's slippery as well. It's freezing cold and slippery today. So let's try and get this video done without falling over. What has just been announced? The worst recession in 100 years, a century, is about to hit the UK, with the USA following, estimated somewhere in the next few months. Who is surprised by this? Are you? You shouldn't be, because we've been talking about this on the channel for a while now. We've known that we've been in recession for a few months, well, since the start of the year really, but they just didn't want to admit to it. But now they're finally admitting we're going into this deep, dark recession. They're calling it 5 years of pain, or the lost decade, the forgotten decade, because they're saying 2020 to 2030, Agenda 2030, is going to be the lost decade. You know, it's going to be so bad that people are going to talk about this in the history books like the Great Depression. So first we had the Queen's death, then we had the shortest reigning Prime Minister in history, who she still gets a very nice salary for those 5 weeks of work, by the way. Did not want to give that up. No surprise there. What else do we have? The pound crashing against the dollar. And then we had the pension funds being bailed out. So the governor of the Bank of England, he folded. He folded big time, didn't he? Let's go this way. When the pension funds were about to collapse, he said, no, we're definitely not going to create any more money. Oh, no way. And as soon as they almost collapsed, what did he do? He went straight back to more QE, which, by the way, you're going to see in inflation in probably 16 months to, I don't know, 18 months later. So you're going to see this other peak. And remember, I've talked about as well, this applies to a lot of countries, USA as well. We're going to see these two peaks of inflation. I'm not 100% certain on it. It's just a theory that I've got. But I do think we're going to see this second peak of inflation later on, because what they are doing right now is they're trying to control inflation with normal monetary measures like raising interest rates, etc. But the other thing that they are doing behind the scenes is some of them are still doing quantitative easing, which is basically creating more currency. So in the same way that I said we'd see inflation, very bad inflation, double digits by 2022, which we've now got, we're also going to see more inflation later on. I don't know exactly when. It could be mid-2024 just as a guess, and I am just guessing here. But we are going to see this second peak later on, I think. Now, it's pretty funny if you've been listening to the media over the last few days, and they're talking about all these new tax cuts and budgets, especially in the UK. And just these people are completely out of touch. And they're saying, well, we're all in it together. We all printed all this money to pay, the big pharma companies. Huge, hundreds of billions went to big pharma, which, by the way, then went to profits, which got distributed via dividends to shareholders. So really all of this new currency that was created, or not all of it, but a lot of it, went to big pharma anyway, and went to the wealthiest people and the hedge funds and everything else in society. And then you have the politicians saying, we've all got to pay for it. We're all in it together. We've got to pay for all of this debt. And now they're doing all these big heavy taxes on the energy companies. But you're not really hearing anything about taxes on pharma companies, or what are they not mentioning? We can't say the V word, but we'll say the vials now. The vials are going up to $150 for a vial that costs less than $2 to manufacture. I mean, it's crazy, absolutely crazy. Oh, it's a lovely walk today. I haven't seen a single person the whole time I've been walking, But if you look at the path here, let me show you the path. It is very muddy and wet. So a lot of people don't want to be walking around at the moment. So I get all of this beautiful nature all to myself. The other thing I thought was quite funny was in politicians' questions and things like that, they always ask, where did this inflation come from that we've got right now? And they never tell you the truth. They never say, we printed tons of money in lockdowns. Nope, they don't say that. What do they say? Putin. It all came from Putin. And I'm just waiting for someone to say, hold on, the inflation started in 2021, like these really high levels that were just spiking. Whereas the conflict in Ukraine started earlier in 2022. Like, why is no one even saying that? That's what makes me laugh. You would expect someone to say it. No one said it yet. And public surveys, what is it? Something like 75% of the public believe all this inflation is from Putin. It's absolutely, it's baffling. I thought people were more intelligent than that, but I guess all these indoctrination camps now have got people believing pretty much anything. It's like common sense is not taught anymore. It's all gone out the window. So I was watching a couple of economists overnight, just listening to their thoughts on all these new cuts and the new budgets and everything else. And it was quite interesting just listening to these economists who are meant to be really intelligent people. Some of the things they say are baffling. Well, actually, there's one thing that was quite interesting, which a few of them agreed on. And that was quite interesting, not in a baffling way, but they expect living standards in the UK, USA, Europe, some of the Western nations to drop by as much as 10% over the next few years during this sort of lost decade. So that's not going to be good because, and they didn't explain why, but if you think about that, I think there's some good logic behind that theory. Because of the rate of inflation and all of these tax cuts, wages aren't going to keep up. And some of these, not tax cuts, tax rises are extravagant. If you are on a higher earner, which doesn't say a huge amount in the UK, but if you're a higher earner in the UK, that tax bracket of 45% plus national insurance, by the way, your tax bracket is a big difference now. In fact, let me tell you the number. So previously it was 45% tax. Some of the Americans and other people are like, what? What, Neil? 45% tax in the UK plus whatever it is, national insurance, 12% or whatever it is these days. But now it's been reduced to, if you earn £125,140 from April coming up, you're in that 45% plus national insurance tax bracket. Oh gosh, this is one of the reasons I left the UK. These sort of taxes are insane. And I think it's just, a lot of people just grow up with the taxes, so they don't really think much of it. But if you did the opposite, let's say you didn't grow up with taxes and you were offered to move to the UK for 45% plus national insurance plus all the other taxes, I think you'd say, what? I'm not paying those taxes, I'm not moving there. Now, the other thing I thought was interesting was, it was only on Wednesday I talked about, that was an interesting video, the jobs and where I see jobs going. I talked about white collar versus blue collar, what I see happening. I'm saying it was an interesting video. Again, I'll come on to a stat in a minute. Some people were really upset by that. I'm unsubscribing, all in caps. And there was a good amount of people that unsubscribed from the channel and were unhappy, simply because I said my theory is that this next recession will be a white collar, not a blue collar recession. Very different from other recessions that we've had. But I'll say the same as I always say, don't take offense by my theories and opinions. This is just facts, or well, it's not even a fact, it's just a theory that I have. You don't need to take offense to it, get all upset, send emails all in caps, furious or whatever. It's just a theory, okay? I'm not causing it, I'm just letting people know, hey, this might happen, so you might want to think about alternative arrangements if you might be hit by this wave. So anyway, the government stats and economists are talking about unemployment rising by a fair amount. They're talking 1.5%, 2% sort of numbers. In the UK, that isn't a lot. It's about 500,000 people. But in the USA, that amounts to a lot of people. is pretty significant. It's in the millions of people. So it's just something for you to be aware of and to be prepared for. I think most of you who have been subscribers here, you're prepared for all of this stuff by now. Anyway, you've had a good year and a half, or well, 2 years, many of you, to prepare for a lot of this. But just be aware, this recession now, they are starting to admit to the statistics, and it is going to be bad. But by the way, this 5%, 3%, 4% number they give anyway is not true. The true number is way higher. It's 20% or more is unemployment right now, maybe 25%, because they're not talking about people who are doing gig work and all this other stuff. You know, they're classing, if someone's got a gig job or they do some sort of freelancing and they earn £100 every few months, they're classing that, as bizarre as it is, as part of being employed. So it's not really true anyway, these statistics that they put out. So a few other things in this latest announcement, and again, predominantly UK here, is council taxes. So if you're in the USA, this is like your homeowner's tax or whatever you call it, that you pay to the city. So this is going to be going up by a pretty large amount, and the services are going to be going down. So I don't know how often they empty your bins or your trash anyway at the moment. Mine gets emptied every week. It's really, really good service. But I remember when I was living in the UK, sometimes it would be every 2 weeks, or there was a strike for 8 weeks, and you know, all this sort of stuff. And yet you're paying more for all of these services that are getting cut. But what isn't getting cut, this is the very controversial one, which I'm surprised no one has picked this up, or the media hasn't picked this up. Bankers' bonuses and bankers' taxes and cuts and things like that. So I think it was about 8% before that banks had to pay this sort of tax. It was an 8% tax. Well, where all these other taxes are rising now, the bankers' tax, here we go, for banks, guess what? It's been cut. Talk about a slap in the face. So where everyone else now is paying higher taxes, the bankers and their bonuses and everything else are paying from next year lower taxes dramatically. They are going to, I mean, I just did a rough calculation, so I can't give you exact numbers, but it is in the tens of billions of pounds that the wealthiest companies and individuals that work at these companies are going to get in tax breaks. It's crazy, absolutely mad. And none of these politicians are sort of talking about this. It's baffling. And if you're a business owner or a small business owner, it's even worse for you guys. Dividends. I remember when, going back a few years now, where I could take dividends tax-free from my companies. And these were, in a way, it was like a reward for doing a good job, making a profit, hiring people, having employees, delivering a service to society. And your dividends were, your reward for that. But now, gosh, these dividend rates are unbelievable. They are unbelievable, and they're going to be coming, the allowance on it is coming down even further. Here we go, so it's going to reduce, so it was 5,000, reduce from, now it's 2,000, down to 1,000, and then £500 in 2024. So that's your tax-free allowance on dividends. Now, if you're a higher taxpayer, forget about it. Your dividend rate is going to be is crazy. And remember, these business owners are not your enemy, by the way, especially the small to medium-sized businesses who employ at least 60% of the population. So actually, a lot of these SMEs are the good guys. It's some of these huge, big companies that all they care about is profits, who are the bad dudes, shall we say. But most of the small mom and pop type of businesses, these are pretty good people. I don't know why they get such a bad rep, because they're not bad people. They're usually very good, kind-hearted people, employ 60% of people. They got decimated during the lockdowns and everything as well. There was just no support for them. Or if there was, the government said, oh, you can have these loans, but you've got to pay them back. What did the big companies get? They got grants. Yes, grants that didn't have to be paid back. Even the Prime Minister's wife, Sunak's wife, got, or I'm not allowed to say this, but I'm going to say it. She got all of these grants for her gym chain, so these gymnasiums, that she's got. And then guess what? She filed bankruptcy and didn't have to pay back any of these grants. And it was significant sums of money. And this is someone that's worth billions. And yet you've got people that are hungry, cold, pensioners, that, you know, and there's arguments over very small increases to wages for hard work in public services and things. It's crazy, the world that we now live in. And the other bad one is the capital gains tax. So the allowance is 12,000 or so at the moment, pounds, and that's going to be coming right the way down to about £3,000. Now, CGT, capital gains tax, and IHT, inheritance tax, is a massive scam anyway. It's basically legalized theft, if you think about it. Why should you have to pay capital gains to the government on your own assets that you have worked your backside off to earn and to invest into, or maybe it's your house or some? Why should you pay the government? If you lose money on these assets or the property, does the government say, here we go, here's a big rebate, sorry you lost? No, of course not. But yet, if you make a profit, they want their share of that. And inheritance tax is absolutely horrendous anyway. Inheritance tax on your parents or grandparents passing away from this world, and they've worked so hard for all of those assets, and then the government takes a massive chunk. It's just a massive scam, this whole system. Now, the other controversial one, this is, some of you are going to like what I say here, some of you are not going to like this one. But we're going to talk about Ukraine, the defense budget. £2.3 billion. Just stop and think about that for a second. That is what the UK is sending in weapons to Ukraine. What's the education budget this year, or the increase on the budget? £2.3 billion. So we're spending the same amount sending weapons to Ukraine as we are for our own children's education. Does that sound right to you? Or should I be more specific and say that's the increase to the budget? But either way, it's crazy. Oh, look at this over here. Let's have a quick look in here. But we did get some good news overnight. Nancy Pelosi is retiring. Hallelujah. Thank you, God, for finally getting rid of that despicable creature. Oh, here we go. Let's have a look over here. This is, looks like this used to be someone's house, look. Someone would have lived here hundreds of years ago. But yeah, this is good news. Finally getting rid of Pelosi. I am very happy about that. Of course, it's nothing to do with her husband and that whole situation, shall we say. Hey, you can't even talk about that. People get fired. YouTube accounts cancelled for even questioning the story there. So I'm not even going to get into it. I like my channel and my subscribers here. But the other thing that's crazy about it is, I think now that she's the world's best stock market trader, I think she's probably earned so much at 82 years old. You know, she's never going to die, is she? So 82 years old, she's probably like, okay, let's retire now. I've made enough money. Man, politicians on their very small salaries somehow become multi-millionaires or hundreds of millions. It's impressive, really. Don't start questioning it, but it's pretty impressive. Oh, look who it is. It's Kristen.
Hello.
Where were you?
I was just checking out down here. There's like old wall, and I was trying to figure out where it went to.
Right, let me give you the mic. There you go, take the mic.
I just want to say happy Thanksgiving to everybody who is celebrating over in the USA. Have an amazing time, and I will pass you back over to Neil.
All right, well, that is a wrap, as we don't ever say on this channel. But thanks for watching today. Take care. God bless you guys and your family. And from me and Kristen, we are out. See you later. Here's a derelict house. What is it, Kristen?
This is an old window, and there used to be glass in here. You can see it was a really, really thick.
Whoa, look how low it is, though, to the ground.
I don't know why.
I think there was the mud flood. It was the mud flood. Here, look.